myself. My name is Mrs. Wager. I'm here helping out with Alumni Week. We have today Micah Joselow, an Ossining alumni who graduated in 2008. And we have Alex Grabstein, who graduated in 2013. And they're going to share their high school experience at OHS, and also they're going to share their experience after or post OHS.
As you said before, my name is Micah Joselow. I'm a class of 2008 graduate. I see a lot of familiar faces in the crowd today in terms of teachers, so really excited to see you all. It's been a really long time. I graduated from Princeton in 2012, and after that had the opportunity to join a program called Teach for America, where I was a teacher, math teacher specifically, for a couple years before helping found a charter school and eventually moving into a school leadership role. Really loved all the work that I did, but eventually ended up realizing that if I wanted to have an impact on the education system to make the world a more equitable place, that while the work I was doing in education was really important, I wanted to find a way to be able to have larger systemic impact. I think a big reason why I was so passionate about education reform was growing up in Ossining, growing up in such a diverse place, growing up in such a vibrant place, really proud of where I'm from. So I ended up making the tough decision to leave the school that I worked at and become a consultant by going to business school, something that I, for those of you who remember me from high school, never thought I would do. I currently right now work for a company called Boston Consulting Group, which is a large management consulting firm, originally based out of Boston, but is now all across the world. I work out of our Los Angeles office. Consulting is a job that I honestly didn't even know existed when I was in all of your shoes, and honestly didn't know existed even when I was in college. It's a really cool job to me in the sense that I get to solve a lot of really complex and interesting problems. And I put together a couple slides to kind of explain to you what a consultant does, but figured I would start off by giving you all that background on some of the work that I've done beforehand. So I would say that consultants are tasked overall with bringing together ideas to help organizations solve problems that they don't know how to solve on their own. That can be anything from how an organization, like a big business, wants to become more environmentally conscious, to helping a government allocate large amounts of money, to any problem you can think of in between. Most big companies, most big governments at some point in time have hired my consulting firm to work with them to solve difficult problems and, basically allow them to make decisions that they don't have the resources to decide about on their own. One thing that's been pretty cool about that is that BCG, my consulting firm, has allowed us to have a lot of different resources that allow us to help make challenging problems like the one I'm going to share with you all in a moment a little bit easier to do. Consulting is a job that I think involves a lot of ambiguity. I basically change from one company to another, one organization to another every few weeks. And it means that, while most people who are working a job are consistently working with the same people, the same organizations, I'm constantly working with different people, constantly learning about new problems, constantly learning about how to take a problem that we've solved in one place and kind of try to bring that solution to another place, which has been really cool. I've always been interested in problem solving, but never realized how problem solving can be a full-time job, if that makes sense. Consultants do work pretty long hours, but it teaches you a lot of trade-offs. I've had the opportunity to fly all over the world and all over the country as well as a part of my job, which has been really cool in terms of getting to go and see firsthand different parts of the country and see firsthand, why different organizations are having different issues and problems. In addition to that, I would say that it's been a really collaborative job. I worked very closely with my classmates and my teammates on my team, and have the opportunity to just, I'm a former teacher. My team is filled with former lawyers, former doctors, former diplomats, former everything you can think of. And it's just a kind of a collection of really talented people, and somehow me as well, that get to, join as a group and solve, really interesting problems. Mr. Japs, I saw you. What's your favorite spot? Actually, as funny as this sounds, of all the places I've been, I worked with a large retailer based out of Bentonville, Arkansas for a few months a couple years ago. And as crazy as it sounds, Bentonville, Arkansas is a really interesting place that you should definitely check out at some point in time. They have world-class art museums and restaurants, despite the fact that it's in the middle of nowhere. So definitely an interesting one. But I decided to, like, obviously, I've talked about consulting at a high level. I decided to put together a sample consulting case based on Mr. Jaffs' ideas to give you all a sense of what I'm currently doing right now and what one day in my life could look like. So as you all know, given that I see the number of people in masks and via Zoom, right now, COVID is obviously, recovery from COVID is the top of mind for a lot of people. We've had a lot of issues all across the US with, not just death from COVID itself, but unemployment, a complex relief landscape, and, budget shortfalls in terms of governments really don't know what they need to do in order to set us all up for success. So because of that, the Biden administration, our current president, decided to put together a $1.9 trillion with a T, which is a whole lot of money, stimulus bill. And because of that, states all across the country have to make really difficult decisions about how they're going to spend the money that's allocated to them. So my consulting firm, and me specifically on the case that I'm on, were called in by a number of different states. I'm currently working with a few different states right now to help them decide how they're going to allocate the money that has been given to them. And the reason why that's specifically tough is, as you can imagine, there's a lot of different ways. You can pay teachers more, you can, pay for utilities, you can, give individual stimulus checks to individuals. The reason why it's super tough is that the government puts a lot of very specific restrictions around how these dollars can be used. And for a state that doesn't necessarily have the resources that a company like mine has, it's difficult for them to figure out exactly how they can use this money. So it's my job as a consultant to take this really complex and difficult problem and try to make it a little bit easier for individual states to think about how to solve. So what I ended up doing was I took this $1.9 trillion, broke it down into the graph that you see here, and then eventually bucketed it out into more digestible chunks. Basically said, okay, we have $933 billion for this. I wish someone would give me $933 billion, $533 billion for this, $205 billion for that. And in the end, we're currently in the process of allocating, literally pretty ridiculous sums of money, and are hoping over the course of the next few months to actually see the impact that this has on people like you and me. So hopefully that gives you a sense of kind of the scale and scope of some of the problems that we try to solve at BCG. Figured I would pause there if there are any questions, and if not, give Alex the opportunity to talk a little bit about his awesome career in education. So Mr. Yonko just asked, how has communication changed under COVID? So we're actually currently working fully remotely. Right now, that's been a challenge, but also has allowed us to not have to do some of the global and national travel that I talked about earlier, which I think allows you to be closer to loved ones and to not have to, I used to be on the road Monday through Thursday most weeks. So I think it's been nice to be able to sleep in my own bed, spend time with my fiance, and, be near loved ones. But overall, most of our communication, like I mentioned before, happens via Zoom. We use a program called Slack that's similar to text messaging, but a little bit more targeted. And what's been pretty cool about that is, even though we're all far away from one another, it's allowed us to kind of feel closer together. And I think that's, at the end of the day, I'm excited to see, I'm actually going to be traveling. I just got my second vaccination dose last Sunday. So I'm going to be traveling to one of the current states that I'm working with in the Midwest in a couple of weeks. And I'm excited to meet the governor and to talk to some of the people that I've been working with directly on a day-to-day basis, to actually have that, in-person one-to-one experience. I'm sure that many of you who are currently in the digital setup miss, or maybe you don't, but I know I do. I miss, being in the same room as the people that I'm working with. It's going to be interesting, meeting all these people that I've been working with for months, given that none of us even know how tall one another are or anything like that. But yeah, no, it's definitely been a challenge, but at the same time been great. I saw one other question came through. What skills did you develop as an educator and as a student, and what helped you prosper in your career? So I would say that I was, back in high school, I was big into, like, I don't know if you guys still have Junior State of America, but it was the equivalent of our debate club. I was, mock trial, Model UN, all that stuff. So I've always loved talking. I think I've always loved, giving presentations, things like that. So I think that being an educator was something that kind of naturally fit within my skill set, and it's allowed me to, now that I spent 6 years in front of students and am now on the other side of the private sector world. But being an educator has allowed me to, as a consultant, be thrown directly into some pretty cool meetings. I've had the opportunity to present directly to, as I mentioned before, governors of multiple states, CEOs of some of the biggest companies in the world. And I think that BCG trusts me with those situations because they know that I've been through even more stressful ones. As all of your teachers in the room right now know, being an educator is a really tough job. And I think no matter how hard I work in my current job, it'll never be as hard as the work that I did while I was an educator. And I think because of that presence of mind and mindset allows me to, I think, feel confident and comfortable in stressful situations. So I definitely think that being a teacher has helped me be a better consultant, and will continue to help me be a great consultant, I hope.
First, shout out to all you students that are in the meet or sitting in your classrooms right now. You guys are literally superheroes. You're going through something that no human on earth has ever gone through. You're trying to learn, you're trying to get through every day. So real talk for a second, shout out to you. Take a second, pat yourself on the shoulder. And my second shout out to all your teachers that are work. I know firsthand that you guys are working your butts off. You're coming home with some emotional days, I'm sure. And you guys deserve all the praise and all the blessings and more. So I guess I could say, going on to my career, I went to high school twice. So my first time I went to high school was actually as a student for 4 years. And I was a decent student. I'm gonna toot my own horn for a second because I'm me. I'm pretty intelligent, but I did not work particularly hard as well as I should have, and that's something I definitely regret. But in terms of what I got from it, Ostening's diversity helped me prepare to work, not just into college, into graduate school, but also in the school that I work in now. Allows me to work with a variety of people. Big part of teaching is talking to a whole lot of different people, your coworkers, students, parents, and being in a diverse environment allows you to come meet people where they are, have respectful and productive conversations. And I think that's something that's of extraordinary importance in the world that we live in today. And I think people that are coming from schools that are maybe not as diverse are not as proficient in that skill. So being able to learn respect for other people and where they come from is something that's extraordinarily important. My joke about going to high school twice, over the last 2 years, I was actually spending a significant amount of time at OHS. I worked very closely with Miss Bauman and Miss Campanelli. Miss Bauman was my cooperating teacher, which means that she was my boss during my time at graduate school. So she's one of the people that really helped me become the baby teacher that I am today. So real quick recap about how you become a teacher. You graduate from high school, then you go to college, you get some type of degree in whatever, it could be math, science, and then once you get that degree, you have to go back to school and you have to take 2 years of graduate school and you choose, what do you want to do? Do you want to teach elementary school or do you want to teach in secondary school, which are the middle school and high schools? So I think the most important thing, though, that I got from both my times in high school that are really helping me this year and this crazy, crazy year is that the teachers that I have. When I look at myself as a teacher, I both think about myself as what I would expect my teachers to give to me. And when I teach with the longevity of Mr. Kopfel, how he basically has a tent in a classroom and stays late after school, with the love of Miss Chumanova she has for her students, with the sharpness of Miss Weil, all the things and the memories that I got from my teachers, I carry with me and I give that back to my students, because I would not be the man who I am without the educators that helped raise me up. So yeah, what should students know about the transition from student to teacher? What goes on behind the curtain? Do you mean like student as in like student in the classroom, or student as in like student teacher?
I guess I mean, like as you transition, because you were recently a student and now you're a teacher, like what's changed from how you look at education that students might not see?
Okay. So one of the biggest things, even when I was student teaching last year, I was in the classroom in OHS for a solid 3 months before COVID shut down the shop. I was viewing every single teacher, veteran teacher that's been working for a long time, as someone that knew exactly what they were doing, that were perfect at their craft, and every single day of every single minute, they knew they were in control, and they knew what was going on, and they knew how to do everything perfectly. And I quickly realized that that's not the case. Every day we learn. Every day we need to adjust. In a year like this, filled with COVID craziness, and in a regular school year, traditional school year, I kind of realized that, and I think this applies to not just teaching, but literally every career. I'm sure Micah could agree with this, that we learn every day, we adjust every day, and we're going to face new challenges that we might never we couldn't have not imagined, and we have to use the skills that we've learned in our life to try to meet them head on.
I think my biggest advice for myself as an 18-year-old would be to kind of follow your passion and do things that bring you meaning. I would say. I think when I first got to Princeton, it was a big change from being at OHS. I felt very out of place, to be totally honest, being surrounded by people from just very different communities than Austin. And I feel like my first couple of years of college, I was really focused on fitting in and finding a career that other people found important. By the end of college, I figured out that education was where I wanted to be, even though it wasn't the path that most students at a school like Princeton choose to take. And I think that I wish that I had made that decision even sooner, so I could have targeted my classes and my internships in a way that wasn't focused on trying to impress other people and was more focused on doing the work that I found meaning in. I hope to be able to kind of come full circle and have a broader impact in the education space eventually. And to answer Mr. Jobs' question, yeah, I'm definitely happy. I think that I get to wake up every morning and I get paid to help people's make lives better, if that makes sense. I think particularly right now, I feel very blessed to be working on public sector work. Not that private sector work isn't cool, but I think that to be literally allocating money for a bunch of different states to help people recover from COVID. Like I'm after this today going to be leading a webinar with like 1,000 different owners of restaurants to help get them relief funding. And I think like can't really ask for a cooler job than that, in the sense that I get to wake up every day and know that I'm helping people.
I want to know when I come in that I have a handle on what I'm doing. I know how to respond to all situations. I know how to best educate the class, and that's something I still am absolutely working on. I'm a first year teacher. This is literally my first year doing this in the middle of COVID. I feel like I'm flying by the seat of my pants, along with my co-8th grader teachers, because I only teach 8th grade biology. And I know that next year will be very similar if hopefully we go back into the traditional setting that all the students here are used to. You're all with your peers and doing your thing. Sure. And I think there's short-term and long-term happiness. Short-term happiness, I think schools kind of stinks this year in terms of what we're generally able to do as a student teacher community, and the kind of activities we're able to do, especially in science. I miss the group activities, the labs, all that. You got my students absolutely make me happy. You guys put a smile on my face every freaking day. Sometimes you drive me crazy, but at the end of it, always have me smiling. Let's just say this, I'll be happier when we're out of the woods and able to see more normalcy, frankly. And when I'm able to see all 20 of my knuckleheads for every section of my classroom being y'all silly selves, that'll make me the happiest. But I want to close with this, unrelated to the two questions. I came back, what was it, 2019, 2020? So 6, 7 years after I graduated. Your teachers will never stop advocating for you, even after you haven't seen them in a long time. They came back. I went to I lived in the science department as a student teacher, and they helped me get to where I am. Even I stopped by all the other departments and talked to everyone that I knew. They gave me advice, love, support, everything. Even if you be getting 60s in their class, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Your teachers will advocate you until the end of time. Never, do not forget that. They got your back. So thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it.
For Micah, if you were going to hire a partner employee, what qualities would you look for?
I think that probably the most important would be people who have empathy and are able to care about others. I think that in a tough job, when you're making difficult choices in stressful environments, I think it's really important to be surrounded by people who are like-minded and clearly care about others. I think in addition to that, being comfortable with ambiguity in terms of things changing constantly. And then the last thing is being a strong communicator. I think that as a former teacher, I really do think that the skills that I gained as an educator to communicate have been what have allowed me to be most successful in my job. And I think I've been looking to get more and more educators to come join me at BCG, and I've been, leading our recruiting process to kind of create more of a pipeline for former educators to come work in the private sector. So, definitely something that I think is really helpful and has had a big impact on my career.
Thank you guys for having me.
Mr. Grabstein, I miss your class, man.
Thank you. I miss you too. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, he's torturing me. It's okay.
Loeb, Mrs. Loeb.
Hey, Miss Loeb.
Alrighty. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Right. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this session. Want to give a very big thank you to Micah and Alex for joining us today. Alrighty. Enjoy and have a wonderful day. And good luck in your meeting today, your webinar, Micah. Take care. And you and Alex in your classes today.